Now we're going to be installing our solenoid for our AVCR. As you can see, there's a piece of masking tape here, and that's not by chance. We actually put that on there because we're going to use our solenoid valve as a template for where we're going to drill our holes into the shock tower. So I'm going to go ahead and take the rubber bushing that's going to be against the engine bay and our between our engine bay and our solenoid valve, and I'm going to go ahead and use the holes on this as our template. So we got one right here, 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 and here. Now you can see where we're going to be drilling our holes. Alright, now we're ready to drill. We're going to first punch our little dimples into the engine bay. Watch your fingers, boys and girls. Okay, now we're ready to drill. So go ahead and... Now we're ready to install our solenoid. We've already pre-drilled our holes, and we also have this rubber bushing that needs to go between the solenoid and the side of our shock tower. Our 4 screws, and we're going to be finished. And when we come back, we're going to install our map sensors. Okay, now we're ready to install our map sensors into the firewall. Actually is where we're going to mount them. We have 2 of these, and we went ahead like we did with the solenoid, the AVCR solenoid, and we've already tapped out our holes. So take the provided screws, go ahead and feed them through the firewall. When you're done mounting, you should have something that looks like this. So I want to point out that we've got our map sensor for our boost gauge and our map sensor for our AVCR. Here's our electrical connections, and here is the barb for our vacuum lines. So just keep that in mind. That's what you're looking at here, and our 2 map sensors. Okay, now we're ready to install our vacuum lines from our solenoid to our charge pipe. If you look at the solenoid, you're going to notice there's 3 ports. The first port up here is the normally closed, NC. Then you have normally open, NO, and your common port, which is underneath, COM. These ports are the ones that you're going to be feeding off of to the various locations, to our charge pipe and to the actuator. In our application, since we're doing an internal wastegate, we're going to be using the normally open and the COM ports only. So our normally open port is going to go to the charge pipe. We're going to go ahead and run our vacuum hose like so. We're going to go ahead and connect our charge pipe now. And don't forget your clamps. We've already slid ours on, but you want to make sure you not to forget those because there's a lot of pressure and these pipes sometimes do pop off. So you don't want to be popping. There you go. And into our solenoid with our clamp. So that's our normally open port. Now we're ready to connect one end of our vacuum line to our common port on our solenoid valve. Like so. And then take your clamp, just go ahead and cover it. Perfect. Now we're ready to connect our other end of our vacuum line to our actuator, which you can see down here. Go ahead and just slide that on to the nipple, like that. And then you're going to want to take and clamp it like that. So now that's not going anywhere, and we are set to go on our vacuum lines. Now we're ready to connect our 2 pressure sensor vacuum lines into their respective locations. For our AVCR, we're going to actually connect our vacuum line and tee it in to our fuel pressure regulator hose. So that comes down underneath our intake manifold and connects to the vacuum block on our intake manifold. For our boost gauge, we're actually going to connect from here and right into this open terminal on our vacuum block. Alright, first we're going to connect our boost gauge pressure sensor. So feed in your vacuum line through the bottom, and then we're going to run our line down underneath some of our harness, and we're going to connect into the vacuum block on our intake manifold. Now we're also going to be mounting a filter in line with this hose, but we'll get to that after we install our AVCR line. Next, we're going to connect our map sensor for our AVCR, and that's the one that we're going to tee in the line into our fuel pressure regulator vacuum hose. So go ahead and feed one end of your hose into the bottom of the map sensor, and then we went ahead and we already cut our fuel pressure regulator vacuum hose in half close to the vacuum block, and this is where we're going to tee into. So get your tee that's provided, put the bottom part through the hose, and then one side of the tee goes into the vacuum block on the intake manifold, and the other side connects to the other end into our fuel pressure regulator vacuum hose. So once you've done that, you're done with running all your vacuum lines. You need to install your filters. These are moisture filters. They'll prevent moisture from getting into your map sensors. So these will be run inline on your vacuum hose. So we're going to go ahead and cut our lines in half. You want to stagger them so you're not overlapping your filters. And just go ahead and stick one end into one side. These are made out of plastic, so be careful not to break them. And the other end into the other side. And your final step will be to zip tie around the line so as not to have these come loose. And this is your final product. Now we're going to move on and connect all our plugs. Alright, so we finished putting in all our vacuum lines, and now we're ready to move on to connecting all our connectors. What we did is we've already run our harnesses respectively to every single location that we have a plug for. So we've got our harness run to our solenoid, our two map sensors, our water temperature sensor, our oil temperature sensor, and our oil pressure sensor. And we're going to go ahead right now and plug everything in. Now we're going to connect our solenoid to our harness, our AVCR map connection, our boost gauge map connection, our oil pressure sensor, and our water temperature sensor, and we ran our harness underneath our charge pipe just to keep it clear. But go ahead and plug that in. And finally, we're going to plug in our oil temperature sensor.